What's going on, everybody? I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller, here with my Rolex Explorer 2 16570. Now guys, ever since I started this channel, but especially ever since I started the Time Teller shop, I've been getting a ton of questions on how to measure watches. Okay, this might seem like kind of a basic question, but there's a whole lot of collectors out there that don't really think about this when it comes to watch collecting. They don't really think about all the different little measurements, and I'm very blessed to say I have a bunch of new collectors that come and watch this channel, so this one's for you. Now I also have a dedicated playlist for the new watch collector. Click up here in the top right and there's honestly a full playlist just chock full of information for the new collector. So yeah, click that link and go binge watch. But right now we're gonna go ahead and take some time and figure out all the different dimensions and all the metrics and how to really go about measuring a watch. And this will kind of give you, I don't know, a better bearing on what watches are best for you. So let's go ahead and do it. It's 6:01 p.m. Let's get down to business. Okay guys, so the first thing you'll need when it comes to measuring a watch is obviously a watch. Doesn't need to be that watch, but you're gonna need a watch. But okay, you're definitely gonna need one of these. All right, this is known as a caliper tool. Now, you don't need to spend a ton of money on these. This is actually a fairly inexpensive one. I think I spent around $10 or less on Amazon. I'm gonna leave a link to my Amazon store where I have this exact tool. So check the description below and you can pick one of these up. But I'm gonna show you exactly why this is a lifesaver when it comes to watch collecting. Okay, so when people talk about, you know, oh, 40 millimeter case, 39 millimeter case, or God forbid, you know, a 50 millimeter plus Invicta, what are they measuring? Well, they're measuring obviously the case of the watch, but you're going to maybe even go diagonal across. You're probably not going to measure the crown guards. These would be known as the crown guards here, protecting the crown. And you're going to often exclude the crown. Okay, so when it comes to measuring a watch and when it comes to case diameter, they're usually not measuring the crown guards or the crown. So we're actually going to put the caliper tool, one right here by the 8 and one right here by the 20. Let me see if I can do this on camera. So, of course, we're going to zero the tool. Then, if I can get it on camera, boom. Right around 39.4 millimeters. And guys, it's really not uncommon for companies to round up with their dimensions. That's very, very common. Seiko actually got themselves in a little bit of hot water because initially the Sarbo 17, they listed at 38 millimeters, I believe. But then when some other variants came out, they listed it at 39, and then some of them were listed at 39.5. They all have the same case essentially, but the measurements might come out a little bit different. They all wear just around 39 millimeters. Now this is listed at 40 millimeters, but as we can see, every time we measure it, it comes out just right under 40 millimeters. That's how you'd go about measuring the case. But what about the lug to lug? Now guys, this is a very, very important measurement, okay? Because the case diameter, that doesn't really indicate exactly how much real estate this watch is going to take up on your wrist. The number one indicator to how big or small a watch will look on your wrist is the lug to lug. That's from here to here. Of course, these are known as the watch's lugs. And a lot of what people get mixed up is lug to lug versus lug width. Okay, the lug width is the space in between the lugs where the strap goes. That's going to tell you, this measurement is going to tell you exactly what size strap or bracelet you will need. The lug to lug tells you the space across the lugs. Okay, now some people measure it right where the spring bar goes. I like to measure it literally end from lug to lug because, again, that's the profile, that's the picture of the watch on your wrist. That's how much space it takes. So what we're going to do, set the watch down, zero it. I get as close as I can to the watch. Boom. Press it in so that I'm practically gripping onto the watch. 47.3 millimeter lug to lug. So again, that is the indicator of how big or small the watch will look on your wrist. Of course, if you press it even further, or the angle of the caliper tool will change it by a very small margin. So that's the lug to lug. Let's put it on the wrist and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so when you're telling the time or looking at your wrist, okay, you can see this space across here from lug tip to lug tip. That is really a good indicator of how much real estate this watch will take up on your wrist. Not so much how big it is across, okay? So if you're interested in finding out how a watch will look on your wrist, get the lug to lug measurement, okay? I don't recommend wearing a watch that exceeds the width of your wrist, because then the watch, you know, it'll just look gargantuan and enormous and kind of grotesque. I recommend maybe creeping close to the edge of your wrist and anything smaller, okay? But again, I'm a vintage collector. I like wearing smaller watches. Again, I don't like my entire wrist being consumed by the lugs or by a watch. I like there being the watch and then some of my wrist still exposed, okay? I don't want to cover up my whole wrist. I got nice wrists, okay, guys? All right, now let's go ahead and talk about the lug width, okay? So we did lug to lug, we did diameter. Let's talk about lug width. So everybody asks me, what size strap do I need for this watch? What size strap do I need for this watch? Well, you measure the lug width. And where this caliper tool comes in handy is not only does it have this side, also has this side, okay? So how do we measure this? Well, we're gonna go zero out the tool, and then you can flip the watch over if you want or whatever. I just lay it flat, and because I'm doing this behind the camera, I'm gonna work with what I got. You're going to essentially glide the tool across the case. These two calipers, or this one caliper I should say, is going to, boom, catch the edge. I'm holding it upside down, and precisely 20 millimeters. That was the tightest tolerance we've measured today. So precisely a 20 millimeter lug width, which means this is a 20 millimeter bracelet, and this watch will use 20 millimeter straps. Awesome. Let's move on to thickness. Now, thickness is important because I think, you know, how big or how small a watch is dictated by the lug to lug, but how wearable the watch is dictated by the thickness. Okay, if you have a very, very thick watch, it's not super duper wearable because it's just super cumbersome, right? Typically, the flatter the watch, the thinner the watch, the more comfortable it is. I'm sure there are some, exceptions to that rule. There's always an exception to the rule. One that comes up off the top of my head is the Seiko Tuna SBBN 031. That's a big watch with a very thick case, thick shroud, but it still lays pretty flat on the wrist, and it's actually quite comfortable. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about how to measure the case thickness. So what you're going to do, this watch has a Cyclops. We're not going to measure on the magnifier. You're going to try to find the thickest point. Let me get in focus here, guys. I'm so sorry. I've never done this before. Never measured a watch before, and I'm exposing myself. Okay, so what you're going to do is find the thickest point under the case and on the crystal, again, excluding that magnifier. And boom, press the calipers closed. And we are getting, again, you got to make sure that you're not tilting the watch, or else that's going to spread the caliper tool. So we're getting right around a 12.3 millimeter thickness. So this watch, it is automatic. It has an oyster case. It's a pretty robust build, but this is a very, very comfortable watch. And 12.3 millimeters That's not bad. All right, guys, so I know this was kind of a very quick, high-speed episode. If you could keep up with me, though, we've learned a lot today. We spoke about how to measure the case diameter. We measured from lug tip to lug tip. Again, this is lug to lug. This is, in my opinion, the most important measurement. We took a look at measuring the lug width. This is what's going to tell you what size bracelet or strap to use. And we measured case thickness. Okay, so again, this is what's going to tell you just how comfortable on the wrist that watch is going to be. So guys, I hope that this helped someone out there. I'm going to put this probably on my website at the Time Teller Shop, and I'm also obviously going to upload it here on YouTube for you guys. So this is going to be in the playlist dedicated to all the new collectors out there. I was one of you at one point, and I'm still learning to this day. So if you learned something, if you enjoyed yourself, please go ahead, click that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss out on any of the content we're putting out here at the Time Teller Shop. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Check the affiliate links in the description below. They'll take you to my Amazon store. Check out the website www.thetimetellershop.com. There should be some new watches there. That is the #1 place to buy affordable vintage luxury watches serviced with a 1-year warranty. Guys, thank you for everything. I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller. Always remember, I didn't invent time, I just tell it.